So we just saw Malignant, and the first thing you might be asking yourself is, has James Wan conjured up another really good horror movie? Well, I definitely have to say this. The theater certainly wasn't dead silent. I can't think of any good Aquaman puns, so let's just officially start the review. Welcome to yet another episode of Round the Clock Frights. I am Josh.
I'm Kimberly.
Actually, I'm Rod Serling. And today, on this episode of Round the Clock Frights, we're going to be talking about Malignant, a 2021 horror film directed by James Wan, who's directed some of our favorite modern-day horror films. Would you agree with that? Is he one of your favorites?
He's one of them.
What's your favorite James Wan horror film?
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring? Yeah, this is a filmmaker who, like Sam Raimi, he likes to put, everything that he has into a movie. Like, he's very creative with his camera setups. Like, you're mentioning how you love the cinematography in this movie.
I did, actually.
Yeah, and I appreciate that about him. Like, his camera movements are always so energetic, and he's one of those filmmakers who is just so desperate to entertain his audience that he just throws everything he has into his movies.
He always comes out really good.
Now, Kim, Malignant, what interested you about this movie? Like, why did you want to see this one?
I think it was just the concept of that they were trying to do something a little different than what you normally would see in horror movies. So something different, but it kind of maybe might have came off as something you might have seen, but at the same time, it just seemed kind of different to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that it was based on psychological, or at least that's how it came off, like the trailer and the synopsis on it came off as it might have been like another psychological horror, kind of like up there with, I was expecting more like The Babadook, and more not like jump scares, just more getting to your mind. So
films that aren't purely supernatural,
yeah.
They're more about like the, they're more about the characters, like, mental states. And
mm-hmm.
Okay, I completely understand where you're coming from. And this is an original idea, and I will be honest, throughout the first half of this movie, I wasn't entirely sure what to think of it. I was leaning towards frustrated because I wasn't entirely sure like what the core concept of this film was. Like, it definitely kept my interest, and I mentioned earlier how the audience was being pretty vocal throughout certain parts of this movie. Okay, we're not going to get any spoilers, but Malignant does ask the question, can a horror film that starts off pretty standard and kind of by the numbers be redeemed by a very well-conceived twist? I would say slightly so. Would you think the eventual twist elevated this movie a little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit? Because the third act of this movie is just completely bonkers. It is just insane. It gets crazy violent. The twist, I gotta give them some credit, I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming either.
And, okay, so here's the thing. So the audience, I don't think they were digging this movie very well, and I can explain why. So this movie, like I said, I won't be going into spoilers, but it is paying homage to a certain kind of horror movie that wasn't always necessarily popular with mainstream audiences to begin with. This movie is an homage to films like Basket Case, or... Actually, hold on. I got it right here. Films like Brain Damage, directed by Frank Henenlotter. These were sleazy underground horror movies that only appeal to certain horror fans. Like, there's a good number of hardcore horror fans who love these films, but they're definitely an acquired taste. And, without giving away the ending, let's just say that James Wan goes full Henenlotter because things get violent and crazy, and I can tell you right now that most audiences, at least nowadays, will not like that.
I can definitely see that.
And what was so frustrating, at least about the first half of this movie, was that I've seen some critics call this film campy. It's not that it's campy, because a horror movie that's campy, it's intentionally being silly.
Huh?
It's not taking itself very seriously. This movie was taking itself seriously to a degree, so I wouldn't call it campy necessarily. I would call it more heightened and overdramatic because, as I'm sure you noticed, I mean, the camera work was just so like over the top, and there were some very creative shots, but there was also a lot of emphasis on the actors, like reactions. Like there were these extreme close-ups of actors just acting to things with these exaggerated facial expressions, and whenever a character spoke, it would sometimes be in a very dramatic whisper.
Yeah, I mean, there was this one scene in particular. Like, I really enjoyed the camera angles, but I, at the same time, didn't get why it was, like you said, heightened as it was. Because I was like, okay, at this point, I was still kind of confused on what was going on to begin with.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, so all of a sudden you have, okay, you probably know what I'm talking about, with the camera angles pointing down on each level of the floor.
Oh, like the one sequence where she's running into different rooms inside the house. The camera is literally like looking down.
Yeah.
Like at the scenery. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like, I really loved the camera angles. That's kind of cool and neat how they did it, but I just didn't get why it was so
crazy.
Yeah, like, okay, like what,
And we were talking about this, a little bit, when we walked in here. What was so frustrating about it was you weren't entirely sure what James Wan was going for. Like, what exactly is he paying homage to here? Like, what style is he going for? Because you don't necessarily get what this movie's going for until the very end, which might sound kind of weird, but the climax ultimately does pull everything together, and you really get a sense of what James Wan was trying to accomplish with this, but you don't really get that in the first half. You're not sure like what direction this thing is going in. And I can definitely tell it was frustrating certain audience members. As someone who does have, let's just say, a passion for 80s sleaze, well, not necessarily 80s sleaze, but I enjoy me some grisly horror. As long as it has, an artistic purpose, or, it's just downright entertaining. That's why I like films like Brain Damage or Basket Case, because even though, they are kind of sleazy and they can get kind of crazy, I mean, they still have some artistic merit, and they are ultimately entertaining. This film does get entertaining in its third act, but you kind of have to sit through a lot of, shall we say, nonsense? Would you use that word?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What do you think of the characters in this movie? Specifically, the side characters, because I have something to say about them.
I felt like... Okay, so one of them would probably have to be her sister. That kind of stuck out to me. I feel like she was too quirky.
I'm really glad that you brought that up.
I felt like she was too quirky. I was not really surprised on her husband. He just kind of gave off that vibe when you first see him. But yeah, no, it was mostly the sister that kind of stuck out to me the most. Like, she just seemed too quirky for such a very serious moment.
Yeah, and I think here's what they were trying to do. Because, again, the last third of this movie does get, like, pretty crazy. I think they were trying to hint at what this movie would ultimately become. Like, they wanted some of these side actors to be a little bit over the top, and, like with the opening sequence where you have these characters who are just saying their lines, very dramatically, and, they're just acting completely just unrealistic. And I get where you're coming from. I think the sister was trying to allude to that kind of style by being quirky, but these are some pretty damn stock characters. Like, I didn't care about a single one of them, to be honest.
Especially. And the other one I thought it was her mom.
Oh my god, her mom. Okay. I mean, that'd be a spoiler, which we don't want to give away, but some of the side characters in this movie, like you have the bland police detective who is trying to crack the case. You have the supportive sister who is there just to be supportive and, like you said, quirky. You have
the asshole husband.
The asshole husband who you might as well just be wearing, nothing but overalls because he was your typical, asshole boyfriend who just likes to beat his girlfriend
and drink.
Yeah.
Get drunk.
So the side characters didn't have much depth to them. The main character, played by Annabelle Wallis, I thought she did a pretty decent job overall. What did you think?
I think her... Okay, so since we're on her, I honestly think hers was a lot better than a lot of these side characters, to be honest. Like, she really brought you into what she, like, since her character is more with trauma and then getting all of this thrown back on her, I think she pulled it off very well.
Right.
She really, really made you feel what she was feeling.
Yeah, when she first comes in the movie, I mean, she's pregnant and she's going through a lot of pain, and she just sells, the physicality of it all, and she just gets like thrown around, like in her first couple of scenes. I mean, my God, this is a very physical performance, like in more ways than one. And let's just say, without going into spoilers, that when the ultimate twist is revealed, she gets to do some things that are very difficult, for the human body to do.
Oh gosh.
And it was impressive, honestly.
Like, I think she, out of all the acting in this, was probably the best one.
And, she's popped up in other horror films before, not necessarily good horror films. She was the lead in the Annabelle spinoff, which came out in 2014. She was in one of my favorite films of the past few years, Tom Cruise's The Mummy, from 2017.
Oh, yeah.
That's a film that just puts a smile on my face. It puts a smile on my face because I actually bought a Blu-ray copy and I actually used it to make a fire in my fireplace. So I put it to good use. That's why it made me happy, because I fucking burned it. I hate The Mummy. Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to tell you about something exciting that we've started doing here around the Clock Frights. I've been talking to my partners about this, and we'd like to reach out to all of you independent filmmakers out there. If you have a short or feature-length film that you would like for us to promote for you here on this channel, please reach out to us. This week, we're going to be talking about a film that honestly left me feeling very emotional. And by the way, guys, it doesn't have to necessarily be a horror film. It can be any genre, because that's what we're all about here at this channel. We want to support independent filmmaking because, again, I know that it can be a very, tough journey, and we want to give back, to the filmmaking community. So anyway, this week we have a very special film to promote for you guys. It's called Transcending Time. It's an award-winning transgender short film. It's about a time-traveling therapist who goes back in time to visit a teenage transgender boy on his darkest night, but through this encounter, finds more hope than he ever could have imagined. This film has already won a number of awards, including Director's Award for Vision and Voice at the ASU Senior Film Showcase, and Best Directed Short for the 2020 Show Low Film Festival. As I said, it left me feeling very emotional, and it's honestly just a terrific, terrific short film. More films like this need to be made, guys. And honestly, I think filmmakers need to be more supportive of one another, because I know there's a lot of competition out there, but in my opinion, the first step is to, help others, live out their dream. That's what we do. That's what we should do as artists. We should help each other. We should be supportive voices, and this film is definitely something special. So guys, I'm going to leave the link for Transcending Time down in the description below. Please check it out, and leave a nice comment for Julie. She worked really hard in this movie, and again, it's definitely worth the watch. And thank you again, guys, for listening. And now that I have promoted this week's short film, we can get back to the review. We can continue talking about Malignant. And I mean, you can kind of put the pieces together. I mean, she has this supportive sister, and her main motivation in the movie is to find someone she can have a connection with, a biological connection with. That's the actual dialogue that she speaks in the movie. So, I mean, you can guess, what her arc ultimately is. It's pretty basic. And see, that's the thing, is that for the first half of this movie, things do play out in a pretty standard fashion. Like, even what did you think of the scares in this movie? Like, not just like the jump scares, but just the overall horror sequences in general. Like, did you think that they were well executed and designed?
For the most part, yeah.
Did it annoy you? Because, I mean, we've seen it in a million horror movies. I mean, you'll have a character who hears something, in the distance, or they'll think they see something in the darkness, and they'll walk towards it. They'll just make all these really stupid mistakes. Like, did that frustrate you at all?
Oh yeah, especially there's one scene that we're not going to spoil into that I was sitting there going, or a couple actually, to be honest. Like, why does people just walk into the dark when they just turn the light off, when they can just turn the light back on? But they wait until the end of a end of like something happening before like, oh, let's turn the light on. Like, well, what happened to that like 5 minutes ago? Like, I'm not gonna be walking down some dark hall that I just heard a noise from.
I was waiting for that moment where a character subverts audience's expectations. You know, there could have been a moment where a character looks down a dark hallway and just goes, nope, and just walks away. I was waiting for that because James Wan, you know, he is pretty clever with his horror sequences, but in this one, apart from one or two, the horror sequences in this movie, I thought were pretty by the numbers and standard, and the jump scares didn't really get me all that much.
But I will comment, some of the special effects with the blood and the gore were pretty good.
They were pretty good.
Yeah.
And
there's a couple of scenes that kind of had me cringing. I was like,
Oh, as far as like the gore that was on display?
Yeah.
Yeah, same here, especially like in the third act.
Mm-hmm.
When it just turns into a complete circus of a movie.
Not gonna lie though, I heard you chuckling at a few parts in that third act though.
Oh, see, the thing is that I can't say anything because that would give away everything.
Oh, I know. But I know what you're talking about.
A lot of critics are saying that the twist in this movie will go down in history as one of the great horror twists. I don't really know about that. I mean, it is creative and
It was pretty cool and you can say badass.
I definitely didn't see it coming, but did it make up for the rest of the movie? Maybe a little bit, like a tiny smidgen. Would you go back and rewatch this movie like from beginning to end, or would you just skip to the third act because the third act was legitimately entertaining?
I'd probably watch it from the beginning, just to kind of see. Now that I've seen it in whole, go back and see how it all tied in.
So is it one of those movies where once you know the twist, like you can appreciate what came before it?
Yeah, because then I want to start analyzing and seeing, oh, okay, that makes sense why they did this and that, yeah.
And this movie does lay out a good number of clues where you can probably figure out the twist. I mean, you might be able to, but I certainly didn't. But I did kind of kick myself because once the twist was revealed, I said to myself, God damn it. Because he did effectively, lay out, that trail of breadcrumbs. You could theoretically figure out the twist if you really think about it, but I didn't. I thought it was well done.
But then now when I go and replace some of the stuff that happened before everything got revealed, I'm like, oh, I can kind of see that too.
It might be a movie that warrants a second viewing.
Especially like the whole thing in the beginning with her coming home pregnant and then with her like whole like pains and stuff. I could see why that was a thing.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about music because Kim, did this not have the most effective, chilling score you've heard in a horror film in quite some time?
It really has. Like, I really honestly don't remember the last time I saw a movie with a good music score. And every time something came on, like some sort of, even if it was just like a piano music piece or even a song, it was like, it really kind of brought you into that mood.
It felt like a score, honestly, straight out of an 80s horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Like something that maybe John Carpenter would whip up, back in like the 70s or the 80s. And yeah, I agree. I would honestly buy the soundtrack because...
I know, I was just thinking this, I was like, I wonder if it's on YouTube right now.
And here's the interesting thing about the music is that you can kind of use that as like... It could kind of serve as like a hint to like where this movie is ultimately going because, it does pay homage to those crazy, horror flicks from the 80s, horror flicks that had these very bombastic scores. So you could almost see that as kind of a, a hint as to where this movie is ultimately going. That things are going to get crazy. And this music...
kind of like the, what do you call it? I can't think about this. Never mind.
But yeah, very impressed by the score. I have to look up who the composer is because, yeah, I was very, very impressed by that.
Yeah.
But was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything else that really stuck out for you?
No, I mean, nothing that wouldn't go into spoilers, but yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So don't read about this movie before seeing it. Do not spoil it for yourself. If you know someone who's already seen it, don't talk to them about it either because they will most likely spoil it. One final thing that I have to say, the final shot of this movie, let's just say that there's a certain character in frame, and what they do with this character It made me laugh. It really did.
It wasn't supposed to be comedic.
It
but
wasn't.
It was.
It wasn't supposed to make you laugh, but we were just howling at what this character was doing. Like I couldn't take it.
I was like, why did we do this?
Like why? Okay, this is supposed to be like an emotional moment. It's the, I'm supposed to be feeling something. I'm supposed to be crying, but I'm actually crying of laughter.
No, it starts off as tears, and then you see it, and then you're like, okay.
And now they're just
took you right out of the moment quick.
And now they're just tears of joy because that final shot, god damn it, this character, like they just ruin it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so guys, those are all over thoughts on Malignant. A pretty bumpy first half, but the third act did tie everything together. You can decide for yourself whether it was, worth it. Whether the whether it was worth sitting through the first hour and a half or so. That's up to you. In my opinion, the twist ultimately did redeem much of the movie, and maybe not one of James Wan's better horror films. I wouldn't put this above something like The Conjuring or even Insidious, honestly. What about you?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put it. I wouldn't even put it above The Conjuring either.
What about The Conjuring 2?
No, not even that one.
What about, he didn't direct this one, but what about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It?
No, it's underneath that one too.
Really?
I really liked it. I know you didn't, but I did.
I have to give Malignant points for originality because The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Yeah, that. No. That's totally fine. No, that didn't do much for me. But yes, guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Malignant. And as far as the rest of the year, we have some pretty big horror films coming out. We got Halloween Kills, which, critics be damned because it doesn't have the greatest Rotten Tomato score right now. But by God, I'm so excited to see it.
Every time that trailer comes on, you just get all pumped up.
I'm already cheering at the trailer. Of course, I'm going to be cheering, during the actual movie.
For your man.
For my boy, for my bae, Michael Myers. He's my hubby. He can use his knife on me anytime.
Alright, that's for another review.
That Halloween would kill. Alright. Kim, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap things up here?
No.
No?
Other than definitely go in, open mind, try to get all your restroom break before the movie starts because you definitely don't want to walk out. You'll definitely be very confused.
Pay attention to the story.
Yes.
Because even though you might get frustrated throughout the first half, the ending might save it for you.
Yep.
Yes. Have a very scary evening, boils and ghouls. And James Wan.
We are 1 month away from Halloween.
We are. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Not Christmas, Halloween. And James Wan, I hope you wanna make more horror movies. My last James Wan pun of the night. Take care, boils and ghouls.
Bye.
Later.